wealth. Yeah. So karibuni sana to this webinar for Vasili Africa. As always, we are going to be handling all the questions. Maybe we can handle actually the questions, because this one is not more of a presentation, it's more of a Q&A. We're going to be handling the questions as they come in, so kindly chat them on the chat box. If you're on Facebook Live, feel free to ask us the questions on the messenger. We shall answer them as we go along. Agatha, we are going to be talking about debt. We are also going to be talking about something that I have seen you write passionately about, which is black tax. Yeah, just a few insights on black tax. So karibu sana. Yes, and feel free to tell us what you have done for yourself to be debt free. First, introduce yourself.
Okay. Hi guys, my name is Agatha Wanjiru. I am a property manager at a company called AJ Capital and Investments in Dubai. So I am based in Dubai, been here for 2 years now, but I am Kenyan, was born in Kenya and grew up in Kenya. I just moved here 2 years ago. Apart from that, I have a blog called The Well Tribe, just like Nyarira said. And the Well Tribe is both a blog and a movement of young people who aim to speak honestly, to have candid conversations about our financial journeys, and also to help each other to build wealth. So the Well Tribe is all about building wealth together as a community of young people. And so in there we have webinars such as what Nyarira is hosting. I write about my personal finance journey and also encourage other people to write and submit their articles. And yeah, that is what I do. That is my 9-to-5 job, and my blog and movement is my side hustle. Yeah.
To add on to that, your side hustle actually is an income generating side hustle. So you will tell us about that as well. How you can maybe turn your side hustle, for anybody who's interested, how you can turn your side hustle into an income generating stream. Yes. Yes. So tell us about debt.
I will start off by telling you guys about my debt story, so that after I'm done, you can shoot all the questions you have about debt. So I finished uni in November 2016, and as soon as I graduated, I got a job. And I remember my first job from November 2016, I was getting paid 50,000 Kenyan shillings. And I remember when I got my offer letter, I called my best friend and I asked him, hey, this say when I need for 50K, is this a lot of money? And then he was like, yeah, that's a lot of money. He told me that these guys are paying me a lot of money as compared to how much money fresh graduates in Kenya earn. So for me, I was very excited, and it planted this idea in me that I make a lot of money. And so what happened, I went ahead to accumulate stuff, like to start by myself stuff, just like girls and women like doing. I was on an overhaul to buy myself as many clothes as possible, hair, makeup, all these things. And with time, I realized that my money was not enough. I'd get paid at the end of the month, and by 15th, I ask a question that is very common to a lot of us: where did my money go? And so, of course, it was a situation where I was living paycheck to paycheck and had zero control over my money. And then the worst happened. I discovered mobile money loans. You know, I was on Branch, Tala, Okash, Mshwari, KCB, M-Pesa, all those. I was in a cycle of borrowing Peter to pay Paul. So when my Branch loan was due, I would go to Mshwari, take a loan and pay Branch. And then when the Mshwari loan is due, take a loan on Okash or something. There were so many. I was in like 10 of them. Take a loan on Okash and pay Mshwari. And so the cycle continued. And of course, this was caused by both me living above my means, but the main reason I do know that I got into this situation was because I was never taught personal finance, financial literacy in school. Nobody ever gave us that class. And in my home, how I was raised, none of my parents ever, or even my siblings ever, had a conversation with me about personal finance. So just like everybody else, I found myself in this adulting situation where I was supposed to manage myself and manage my money with zero knowledge on how I was supposed to do it. And so one day I was on my way to Karen, I was nikapanda mat. And then as on my way on Gong Road, I received this call. And so this guy asked me, utalipa deni yako lini? And it was a debt collector from one of the mobile money loans. And I told him I was going to pay back the money in a week. He told me, apana, a week is too long. Unafaa kulipa hiyo pesa leo. I told him I don't have the money to pay the debt on that same day. So he told me he doesn't care. He told me, hiyo sio shida yangu. If you do not pay this loan today, we are going to come for you. I was so freaking scared. I panicked. I was so scared. And what happened is that this guy told me, unajua that tunajua mahali unaishi, tunajua mahali unafanya kazi, we have access to your contacts, we know your siblings, we know your relatives, we know where you work, what time you work, the people you call. So the people you call often. So if you do not pay this money, even now we know where you are. If you do not pay this money, we are going to come for you. I don't think I've ever been that scared in my life. And also at that moment, I felt like a failure, like I had failed at this thing called adulting, because how is it possible that on a bright morning, when I'm commuting to work, somebody is calling me to threaten my life? And so I remember on my way to work that day, I felt very scared and very shaken, and that was one of the most terrible days in my life. And so when I went home that evening, I started asking myself, how is it possible that, how is it possible? And so now this life-threatening call came in at around mid-2018. So I asked myself, how is it possible that a single lady like me with no children, actually, I don't have like another primary responsibility apart from myself. How is it possible that I'm not able to manage myself financially? Why am I living paycheck to paycheck? Why am I in so much debt? Because mobile money loans alone, I had like around 150K of mobile money loans. That is a lot, considering that these people only give you like 30K at maximum. And I remember at some point I was bragging to my aunt that, hey, mimi limit yangu ya branch imefika 25,000. That time her limit was 5K. When I think of it today, I'm like, what was I even bragging about? Like for me, that was a point of, a bragging point. And so when I went home that day after and also to add to the fact that apart from all that mobile money loan debt, I had HELB loans. So we all know when you go to public uni, you apply for the loan, and most of us apply for this loan without having a plan on how we are going to pay it back. We just like to me pesa. In hindsight, I do not regret taking the HELB loan because that was the only way I could fund my university education. Unfortunately, I didn't have well-off parents who could pay for me the school fees. So that is not a regret, but the regret is that I got myself into deeper debt without having a plan on how to get out. So anyway, I went back home and I started asking myself, how is it possible that I have no kids and yet I'm in so much debt? And so that's how I started Googling how to get out of debt, how to make a financial plan. And I started reading all these stories and watching all these YouTube videos, and I realized, hiya. So it's not a me problem. That was one of the most surprising things. I realized that it's not a me problem. It's not an Agatha problem. It is an adulting problem where adults are moving around the streets of Nairobi and the streets of Kenya, and they have no idea how to manage their money. And so that was my wake-up call, the life-threatening call, and me reading. So I started reading how to get out of debt and stuff like that. And then one day at the beginning, so by reading all these things, that's when I started having a financial plan. It was an all self-taught thing. I read how to create a budget, how to get out of debt, and I started making a plan. And that is how I got myself to a better financial situation. So So when Nyawera mentioned that I officially became debt free at the beginning of this year, and so what some of the things that I did to get out of debt? No, about how I got out of debt is like I have a small presentation of a few slides. I will to teach you like the things you can do to get out of debt. But so that's what happened. Like I taught myself how to create a budget, how to get out of debt, how to manage my money, how to start investing. And one of the major things, which Nyawera asked me about, one of the major things I did is start my blog. And I remember when I started my blog, I didn't start it as a way to educate other people. It was a private blog where it was a journal. It was a personal journal where I decided that I'm going to be documenting. It was a way to keep myself accountable, where I was going to be documenting my progress. So if I paid a debt, I would go on there and document that, hey, I paid X person. Because I also owed friends. I also, nilikuwa na madeni, woi. I also owed friends. I also owed my chama. Hey, it was deep. I was neck deep in debt. So I would document it. And so one day I randomly started sharing the blog with friends, and my friends started telling me, I wasn't sharing with the public, just my friends. And so my friends started telling me, yeah, Nasi, you start writing more on this thing. Even me, I'm stuck in debt. Even me, I don't know how to invest. And so I started asking them, so how are you guys maneuvering through life if you don't know these things? I thought I'm the only one who doesn't know these things. They're like, "Ata sisi hatukufunzwa, so you better start teaching us." And so that's how now the wealth trade became a thing. Because now people started asking me, how do I do this? And anytime somebody asked me, how do I get out of debt? How do I create a budget? How do I invest in X? So I would write an article as a reply because I knew I would get many more people asking me. And so with time, it became an income generating side hustle where I currently make money from that blog in 3 ways. One, financial coaching. So I do help people who are stuck in debt, who don't know how to create a budget, who don't know how to invest, who don't have a financial plan. So in that way, financial coaching. I also make money from it through ads. If you go to my blog, you'll see a few ads done by Google, and I also sell advertising space. So if you have a business and you want it advertised to like the 15,000 people who read the blog per month, I do that. And then I also make money through affiliate marketing. So affiliate marketing is where you sell other people's products. So like I sell stuff like on Amazon. If they good stuff I find on Amazon, like books, or even, for example, if Vasili Africa has a program that they want to sell, I can put it on there and people will sign up and I earn a commission through that. And actually my blog is one of the things that so from my debt payment plan, I was supposed to be debt free on Feb 2022 because my plan was to pay 10,000 shillings every month, and by Feb 2022 I would have cleared my HELB loan, which was the only loan remaining in 2019 and 2020. But then my blog started making money, and I remember my last payment from my last HELB payment, I paid 53k, and I was like, guy, nimetoa hii pesa yote wapi? And the craziest thing is all this money, all the 53k is money I had earned from affiliate marketing and from coaching. And it was just a shocker to me how a small passion has now become something that pays a huge chunk of my bills. Not all of them, it's still not there, so it's still something I'm working on. So it's something that has paid a huge sum of my bills. And so my blog is my side hustle, is the thing that made me become debt free 10 months earlier than I had planned. So that is my debt journey. And so from that, maybe you guys can ask questions, and I can also like do a small presentation of the 3 debt strategies that you can use to also achieve debt freedom or manage your debt better. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, Agatha. I think you can share the presentation as we see whether there are any questions that are coming in. I know someone is actually very interested in this conversation. Titus, I know you can hear me. He is one of the people who are very passionate about young people getting into financial freedom and coaching people to invest nicely and all that. He is in Catholic University. I know he can hear me, so I would want you to give us maybe something that you have come across maybe at the end of the presentation, maybe something that you have come across when you're dealing with the students at the university, and when it comes to debt and how they can become financially free or debt free, sorry. Financial freedom is something that we all want to achieve. We all want to, at some point, get to that level where, I don't know, for me, financial freedom is where I wake up and I know my money is working for me. I can decide to play golf on a Monday morning at 6 a.m. Yeah, at 6 a.m., knowing that money is working for me, and I can go for shopping without comparing prices. That is financial freedom for me. I don't know what your financial freedom is.
Okay, okay, that's interesting. I think to answer that, my financial freedom is getting rid of morning alarms. That's my indicator of financial freedom.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's the day I will be able to never set a morning alarm in my life. I know I'll have become financially free, or attain financial freedom, because I hate mornings. I hate alarms. I hate going to morning meetings. I hate people calling me in the morning. I hate anything. I hate people speaking to me in the morning. So
Wow.
if I can be in a situation where I don't have, because right now I do have to use morning alarms because I have a 9-to-5 job. I hate it. So if I get to a point where I can actually tell my boss, I'll show up at whatever time. And he'll be like, okay. So that for me will be my financial freedom.
That is financial freedom for you.
Yeah.
All right. There's someone who has asked a question. I don't know whether you're able to share the presentation.
I think you have to make me a host or something. Share, because I think I can share. Let me do it, and then let me do it, and you guys can tell me if you can see. Move this. Present. You guys can see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay, cool. So I already shared my debt story. And so from that debt story, I wanted to teach you guys, or anyone who is in this forum who is struggling with debt, the 3 debt strategies that you can use to get out of debt. But before I even start sharing, I wanted to tell you guys that people are obsessed about the idea of investing, which is nice. Like people are obsessed with, I saw this investment that has 24% return, 18% return, 15% return. Let me get into it right now. Let me even take a loan from my friends right now. Let me take my emergency fund and invest in it right now, because you do not want to be left behind. But people forget that in this world, there are only 2. The reason why debt management is so important is because there are only 2 ways to make a guaranteed return in the financial world: paying back your debt and minimizing your taxes if you can. Those are the only 2 ways to make a guaranteed return. So even before you start your obsession on jumping on the bandwagon on all these investments you see, the first thing you should do is manage your debt. And so there are 3 debt strategies that you can use to manage your debt. The first one is called the urgency method, which is something I came up with from my debt story, and I'll teach you about it. Then there's the snowball method. This is a very common one, and also the avalanche method. So the urgency method, from my story, I told you that one of the things that was most challenging is stress, especially that time when I received the life-threatening call. I was very stressed. I was very anxious. And we've seen that a lot of people who have loads of debt, their emotional well-being, it affects their emotional well-being. So the urgency method is all about recognizing the fact that debt affects your emotional well-being. And one of the ways is through the life-threatening messages from debt collection. And also your reputation suffers. For example, if you owe your neighbors money, or even your workmates, or even your relatives, even your parents' money, it affects your reputation, because people talk. People talk about So Agatha anakuanga na madeni, you'll often hear Agatha anakuanga na madeni na huwa alipi. Ati huyo usimkopeshe pesa yako hata kulipa. And so obviously that affects your reputation. I see people who are so deep in debt that they do not even open ati wanasomeanga their WhatsApp messages on the notification bar because they do not ever want to be online, because they know when they go online, one of the things that will be popping is utalipa deni yangu lini. So that is why the urgency method is important. So how does the urgency debt method work? So what you need to do is list all the people and institutions you owe, and then assign them an urgency tag. So for example, an urgency tag would be to clear immediately, blacklisted, urgent, not urgent, or to pay in X days, weeks, or months. So this is how. So create a simple Excel sheet like this one and assign each debt that you have an urgency tag. So for example, this person owes John $100, has a credit card debt, 1,300 worth of credit card debt, has another credit card debt, 5,560, owes a SACCO $400, and has a payday loan of 351 USD. And so there's another column for interest rate. All you have to do is find out the interest rate of the loans that you have. So for John, it's 0%. This is probably a friend that this person owes. Then the credit card here in this case is 22%. I do hope you guys know that credit card debt is one of the worst debts that you could get yourself into, especially if you do not read the fine print or if you do not know how credit card debt works. And then so the other one is on 18%, SACCO is on 8%, and this payday loan is at 300%. So by making this list and assigning an urgency tag, this person knows that the money they owe John is urgent. The credit card has a 2-year payment plan. The second credit card is not urgent, which is very unlikely for a credit card. The SACCO is immediate clearance, and for the payday loans, this person is blacklisted. So when you make such a list, you're able to decide which debt you should pay off first. So for example, in this case, this person should start by paying this blacklisted loan, because being blacklisted means that you're in the CRB for the wrong reasons. And that means that in future, you're jeopardizing your prospects of ever securing a loan from any financial institution. So this person would need to start by tackling the payday loan, and then go to the SACCO loan, go to John, and then the credit card 1, and then finally credit card 2, because in this case they know which one is the most urgent. Because one of the things that people struggle with when it comes to debt payment is, which debt do I pay off first? So making this list will actually answer that question. So why the urgency method works? Listing your debts on a spreadsheet is very liberating. And so now I actually get to answer one of the ways I got out of debt. I literally opened an Excel sheet and made a list of all the debts that I owed, all of them, the institutions and the people. And listing your debts, creating a spreadsheet and listing all your debts is liberating in that you remove that stress from your head and put it on your Excel sheet. It's an action-oriented thing where you're like, yeah, it's facing, it's ripping the band-aid and facing all the debts that you have. So listing your debts on a spreadsheet is liberating in that way. And for me, that was the first step towards getting out of debt. It's accepting that this is my situation, and I, as an adult, I'm taking responsibility of this situation and that I'm going to handle it. And so with less anxiety, people get the logic behind personal finance knowledge and talk openly about money. When you're anxious, when you're stressed, when you're trying to avoid people, a lot of people from my personal coaching experience and from my experience with debt, you will never understand the logic of getting out of debt or the logic of investing or personal finance if you're anxious. You first have to deal with your anxiety by taking responsibility of the fact that, yes, I am in debt and these are my debts. And then the pride of clearing the first life-threatening debt will motivate you to do better and eventually attain financial freedom. So going back to my story, when I cleared that loan, because it was the first loan that I tackled, when I cleared that loan from the, I think it was Tala, from the life-threatening call, I was like, if I could pay that one, then I can clear all the others. So like, I was so proud of myself, where like, I know that because what happens is that as soon as you clear life-threatening calls or I mean debts that are threatening your reputation, then you sleep better. You know that nobody is gossiping about your inability to pay back the debt. Nobody is going to threaten your life. So your life is easier. So the pride of clearing the first life-threatening debts will motivate you to do better and eventually attain debt freedom. And then it maintains healthy relationships needed for financial freedom. You need people, you need your family, you need your friends for you to achieve debt freedom. And so it is important. One of the things that people forget about debt payment, it's not all about you. It's also all about the relationships that you create, because it's important to have relationship with your friends where you can randomly call them and tell them, hey Nyawera, see, you lend me 200k, and this friend sends you the 200k without even asking you ni pesa ya nini na utanilipa lini. Of course, it's important to ask utalipwa lini, but when you have such a close relationship with someone where you can randomly ask them for such a huge amount of money, it means that you can invest in your business without paying the hefty interest rates that come with debt from banks or SACCOs or Shylocks. So that is why the debt snowball works. That is why the agency method works. It's all about managing your emotions and your reputation. And then another way to get out of debt is using the debt snowball method. This is a method that was devised by Dave Ramsey. He's also a financial freedom educator. So what you need to do in this case is make a list of all your debts from the smallest to the largest, except your mortgage, because a mortgage has different rules. So what you need to do in this case is ignore the interest rates and then pay the minimum amount due on each debt except the smallest debt. So minimum payment is the smallest amount out of what you owe that the financial institutions requires you to pay each month. So for example, if you have a debt loan or a credit card loan, they usually tell you that this is the minimum payment that you need to pay each month. You can pay more depending on the contract, but this is the minimum payment that usipolipa hii minimum, you and I will have an issue. So make a list of all your debts and then pay the minimum amount due on each debt, and then pay your smallest debt in full. If it's a big debt and you're unable to pay in full, pay as much as you can. And you repeat the process until you've paid all your debts. So this one, as a summary, make a list of all your debts and then start with the smallest debt. And then ukimaliza the smallest debt, go to the other smallest one until you tackle all the biggest debt. And so, for example, if we could go back to this Excel sheet, the smallest debt in this sheet, if you were to use the snowball method, would be you start by paying John. And so when you pay John, you're like, hey, come on, nililipa John, then I can tackle the other debts. And then you go to the payday loan because it's the second smallest. And then you go to the circle loan, then you go to the credit one, and then you finally finish off credit card two. So why the snowball method works, you are literally creating hope with each debt that you pay. When somebody is deep in debt, what you need to get out of debt for a lot of people is usually hope. And hope is all about paying one debt at a time and encouraging yourself that if I paid X, then I can pay anything. I can get myself out of anything. So hope is what will get you out of debt, one payment at a time. Because what happens is that if you do the opposite and start with the largest debt, you'll get frustrated and give up. For example, in my case, if I started with HELB loan, which was the highest debt around 300K, I would have given up because it's such a huge debt and that required me to, because I paid my HELB loan in 4.5 years. So if I started with my HELB loan, I'd be like 4.5 years. No, I would have gotten frustrated and given up. And there's so much that can happen within 4.5 years. You can get retrenched, lose your job, move countries and stuff like that, which would hinder how fast you can get out of debt. So that's why it's better to start with the smallest debt and build up all the way to the biggest debt. So just like a snowball rolling downhill, paying off debt is all about momentum. It's paying off debt is not about clearing your debts in one day or paying the biggest debt. It's all about momentum. With every debt that you pay off, you gain speed and still you're an unstoppable debt crushing force. Finally, the avalanche method. This one is for people who love numbers. So if you're an Excel sheet guru and you're the kind of person who sits down and you crunch in numbers and numbers are not a problem to you, choose this method. It's also known as debt stacking. So with this one, the interest rate determines which debt to pay off first. Remember the debt snowball, I advised you to ignore the interest rate. In the debt snowball, all you are doing is starting the smallest debt. In this one, you look at the interest rate to determine which debt to pay off first. So in this one, list all your debts from the highest interest rate to the lowest. So ignore the amount or size of debt. Pay the minimum amount due on all your debts, except the one with the highest interest rate. Pay the full amount of debt with the highest interest rate. If you're unable to pay the full amount, pay the highest amount possible. Repeat until you've paid all your debt. Summary, list all your debts. Ask yourself, so let's go back to our Excel sheet. The debt that has the highest interest rate here is this one, paid a loan, 300%. If there's nothing in this world, there's no investment in this world that will ever give you a 300% interest rate, unless your business, nothing will ever give you this amount of return. So that's why the avalanche method advises you to start with the highest interest rate. So in this case, you'd start with the payday loan and then go to the credit card one, then go to credit card 2, Sacco, and then you finally finish off with John. So why the avalanche method works, it's financially efficient. You'll pay less amount of interest to financial institutions. So instead of packing the 300% interest rate, and you know that is money that is coming from your paycheck or from your savings or investment, what you're doing in this case is you're deciding, I'm not going to pay all these interest rates to these banks or to these institutions, so I will start with the highest interest rate. And then the interests that you could be paying to these financial institutions could be directed to other uses, such as building your emergency fund or even traveling the world. It doesn't necessarily have to be investing. Why the avalanche method doesn't work for a lot of people is, if you're deep in debt, you need small wins to keep going. So for example, as I said, if I started with paying HELB loan, I would have given up, because this thing was so much money. It would have taken me so much time that I would have given up. And remember, it's paying debt, it's psychological. It's, for a lot of people, it's not about the numbers. For a lot of people, it's psychological. To attain financial freedom faster, use the urgency method or snowball method, because these two give you peace of mind. But at the same time, to become debt-free, you need a debt payoff plan that works for you, and you need to stick with it. So out of these three methods, ask yourself, from my individual point of view or from my debt situation, which one works best for me? So if your reputation is in line, start with the urgency method. If you have so many debts and you're wondering, where do I begin? Start with the snowball method. If you're a numbers person, if numbers get you excited and beating interest rates and competing with the institutions gets you excited, start with the avalanche. And you can use all of them. You can start with one and then onboard the other. And so it's important to know that coming to terms with all the debt you're carrying can be a daunting experience. Like sitting down and making a list of all the debt that you own is a heart-wrenching experience. Because for me, when I made that list, I was like, how is it possible that I owe all these people, that I am in so much debt? But anyway, you need to step out of financial avoidance and rip the band-aid, because unfortunately, there's no silver bullet to debt payment. The silver bullet to debt payment is you being a responsible adult, coming to terms with all the debt that you're carrying and deciding that, yes, I'm going to get out of debt. I'm going to do something about it. And I will share with you a debt payoff planner that incorporates this debt payment method, especially the debt snowball and the debt avalanche method. And so this debt payoff planner is an Excel sheet that you'll be able to list all your debts, and then it will do the math for you of which debt you should tackle first, which one is the most expensive. I'll do that after this call. And so yeah, that's the end of my presentation. Yeah, so those are the 3 debt strategies you can use. Yep.
Interesting, very interesting. I think, as you've said, writing them down and writing, when it comes to your finances, the moment you sit down and write down from where you are to where you want to go, it's more like therapy. It's more like personal therapy. If you're not willing to heal, you want to heal, but you're not willing to go through that process of wanting yourself to heal, you're never going to heal. So you need to actually be in a position of accepting the situation that you're in. Once you write everything down, you start accepting, this is the situation I'm in, and you want to change. So after now writing them down and seeing, oh my God, I owe more than 10 people money, I need to start paying them off so that I think it's very good, as you said, with the agency method, especially when it comes to personal reputation. It's very good to walk around and knowing you don't owe anyone. And I think even the Bible says a borrower is always the slave to the person you borrowed from. Yeah, so we need to feel like we are debt-free. And unfortunately, we are in a world where, especially in Kenya, it's a borrowing country. Yeah, even Atagava owes so much. However, if you can walk around knowing that you don't have debt for anything, and anything that you want to, maybe if it's a purchase that you want to do, you can actually plan. You're able now to plan and say, there might not be any urgency in this. Let me plan for like the next 1 year, 2 years. Let me see how much I can save, how much I can put aside in maybe as an investment vehicle, so that I can get probably the best interest rate, and then I can purchase whatever I want to purchase. Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of, if you walk around Nairobi right now, there are a lot of billboards on Lipa Pole Pole when it comes to furniture, home decor items. I mean, well, is it an urgency? Is it an urgent need? I mean, you have been living in your house with your furniture. Yeah, don't be tempted to go and borrow to buy seats that depreciate in value, because they will never appreciate in value whatsoever. Yeah, that depreciate in value. What you need to do is just write down how much do you want to purchase a seat, 100K. How much do I need to save on a monthly basis, on a weekly basis for me to get to that goal? So I'm kind of tying down the debt management methods to personal financial planning. And thank you so much, Agatha, for sharing your journey with us. I can see there are a few questions that have been asked. I'll just read them out loud. From Puno, wow, good stuff. And thank you for sharing. What was the biggest challenge during your journey to being debt-free, and how did you conquer it? I think I can combine it to another one from NG. Congratulations on being debt-free. Your journey sounds like you had to break money habits that got you into debt. How did you break those habits? Then the next one is, so when they called you and threatened you, you told them you don't have cash. So where did you get the cash to pay on that day? Did you have to borrow on that day to pay the urgent debt? Because I think that's usually the issue. Yeah. You end up borrowing from one person to pay off the other person. So one ends up rushing in another debt. Yes, I think you can combine the 3 of them as the others come.
Okay. My biggest challenge during my debt-free journey was anxiety, to be honest, because like when I made a list of all these debts, I was like, how am I going to do this? Because the thing is, and this is very personal, and that's why it's called personal finance. For me, I didn't have a parent or an older siblings or somebody of the sort that I could say, nisaidie. You know, for example, when I received that life-threatening call, I didn't have a parent or somebody of the sort that I could call and tell them, these guys are threatening my life. How about you come through for me and pay down this debt on my behalf, and then nitakulipa. It's unfortunate. I mean, if you do have such a relative or such a friend that you could ask, it's a good call. But for me, that was my biggest challenge: the anxiety, the financial anxiety, sleepless nights, not being able to know how I'm going to get myself out of this situation that I got myself into. But how did I tackle that anxiety? I tackled that anxiety by having a plan, in that I knew that I'm having sleepless nights because I don't know how to handle this debt. But the other voice that was coming to my head is that, but you have a plan, you know, this end month. So one of the things that I started doing from that month is I started doing this thing where that time I wasn't a pro at budgeting. So what I did was something very simplistic. Before I received my salary, I would get a notebook and a pen. The old method, get a notebook and a pen, and I would list down the things that I needed to spend money on that month. So I would write, I need to pay my rent, I need to pay my utility bills, I need to do grocery shopping. I need to do, those are the main things. I need to do grocery shopping. And then I would write, then this month, nitalipa e deni. Deni X is the deni that I will tackle this month. So way before I received my salary, I had a plan. So unfortunately, people do the opposite. Unangoja mshahara, and then ukipata ndio sasa unafikiria nitafanyia hii pesa. For me, way before like impulse purchases and peer pressure hit me, I already had a plan. So that's one thing that I would advise you guys if you want to get out of debt. Way before you receive your salary, sit down and ask yourself, when my salary comes in, what am I going to use the money for? Or how am I going to spend my money? So for me, that was my biggest challenge. Another challenge I had, which now connects to the person who asked about the habits, is impulse purchases. As I said, like one of the things that got me into debt is buying clothes, shoes, vitu nonsense too, is because the truth is, if you have like 10 pairs of jeans and you know very well that unavanga tu zile mbili, because those are the two that you look at yourself in the mirror and you're like, hey, I look nice, all the others ni za kujaza closet too. It's just pure clutter. So for me, that's what I did. I got rid of my impulse purchases pole pole. So one practical thing I did is that I knew that the one person in my life who influenced my impulse purchases was my cousin. So my cousin has this shop in Tao. She sells clothes. And the problem is, she's the kind of person who sells very nice clothes. And she's the kind of person who likes owning a lot of clothes. So I identified my direct problem. My direct problem was my cousin. Nikienda Tao, nikitoka job, lazima nipitie kwa duka yake, because she's my cousin. She's like my sister. So tupige story. In the middle of kupiga story, ndio huyo ameniconvince, utakapoa na hii jeans, utakapoa na hii top, kuna hii style imetokea. By the time natoka kwa shop yake, almost every week I would spend like 3K from her shop. So what I did, I called her and I told her, hatuna issues, we don't have a war, but I'm not going to be passing by your shop for the next 1 month. Like, kama unataka tupatane, acha tupatane home, because at home she has no influence on me on the clothes to buy. So that's what I did. I managed my triggers. My trigger was passing by my cousin's shop and buying clothes. So that's how I managed my impulse purchasing habit. By not passing through a mall, by not passing through Tao, I will not see the things that were making me get stuck into debt, and by not seeing, I will not buy them. And so that, by not seeing them, it gave me time to think about my journey and why I want to get out of debt. And then another reason that will influence you guys to like get out of debt is sitting down and asking yourself, why do I want to be debt free? So the reason why you want to be debt free is not even because Agatha shared her debt free journey. Ask yourself why. So my one very major why, and I joke about this a lot and people think it's a joke, but it's very true, is that I do not want to ever go back to poverty 2.0. Like, as a child, I tell people that I faced enough poverty. I have been broke enough in my life. I do not want ever to be broke again as an adult, especially for situations that I can control. So that's my reason. Every day I wake up, the anxiety of getting back into poverty. So ask yourself, why? why is getting out of debt an important thing in my life? So I do hope that has answered the question. You had to break money habits that got into. How did you break these habits? I've said avoiding my triggers. So when they called you and threatened you and told you you didn't have cash, where did you get the cash to pay on that day? Did you have to borrow? No, I didn't have to borrow to pay that debt. Here is the thing. Yes, they threatened me, but they didn't come. I think they will call you several times before they literally start now making practical steps towards coming for you or something like that. So I didn't take another debt. What I did is what I said. I would take my book and write because I had a job. Remember, I had a job, and one of the ways that I was losing money or I was wasting money is by impulse purchases. So I stopped the impulse purchases and started using that money to pay the debt. So nilingoja tu hadi end month na nikalipa hao watu, and that story ended like that. Is there I think I've answered all those questions, right?
Yes. So I was just writing down what you are taking down, the points of what you are saying. I think right now the threats they make, it was even highlighted on TV just recently, I think last week. Yeah. So they will call your relatives and all that, but hey, please avoid that. Yeah. Because for me, I've had people who I've had texts written to me by those debt collectors, tell your friend to nini, and you're like, so you call the person and you're asking them, so what kind of a situation are you in? I don't judge because I don't know what someone is going through, but I tell them, so make a plan of how you're going to get yourself out of the debt. Last year was a very hard year for everybody, yeah? And we all got ourselves in situations where we probably do not want ever to go again. For me, I got myself in a situation where I didn't want to ever go there again. Reason being, we run Vasili Africa. It was a startup. We have just gotten our first funding after 3 years of running the company. So we didn't have everything for the last 3 years. Everything that we were getting was going back to the company. So we were not paying ourselves. And I had another company that I was working for before. So I was relying on that one source of income. Yeah. So the one thing that last year taught me is do not rely on that one source of income, because what happened, even that one source of income came to an end. Like the company couldn't pay. Yeah. So it was more like passive income that is coming through every month. So I know even if I'm not getting money from my company at the moment, because everything is going back to the company, all my bills are getting paid. So I got to a point where 15th has reached, this company has not sent money. So I'm wondering, okay, what do I do? Yeah. So kind of got into debt, but I decided, let me go not into the debt of where it attracts interest. So borrow from family, angel investors. I call them angel investors because then they never give you money with interest and anything. So the one thing that last year taught me is never rely on one source of income. As much as you can, try and see whether you can, and that is coming now to another conversation. Agatha will just touch on it very briefly. Try as much as possible to get to at least more than one source of income, so that more income streams, so that when one is hit, you have a buffer on the other one. Yeah. So I want you to tell us how. I know you have mentioned before how you tried to get into how your blog now started earning more money, and how you turned your passion, your hobby, actually into an income generating stream. But I want you to encourage other people to do the same.
Okay. So of course, one of the best life hacks or debt management hacks is earning more money. Because as you can see, as I told you guys, from my debt freedom plan that I had, I was to be debt free in Feb 2022 if I continued to pay 10,000 shillings every month towards my debt. But because I started making more money from my blog, that is how I was able to be debt free 10 months ahead of my scheduled date. So getting an extra source of income is the best life hacks when it comes to achieving debt freedom faster. So get an extra source of income so that all that money can go towards, can go directly towards repayment of debt like I did. So as a way to encourage other people, I would say the first thing that I want to make clear is that people romanticize the idea of having a side hustle. And I'm glad that or starting your own business. I'm glad that Nyawera, you've said that it took 3 years of reinvesting the money, reinvesting your business money into the business for it to like finally like kick off and become a real thing. People romanticize the idea of starting a side hustle and making you good money. It's not easy. It's very hard. It's very, very hard, because even for me, I started writing on this blog at the beginning of 2020, like January 2020, and right now it's mid 2021, and this is the time. And as I said, it's not even paying me, it's not paying all my bills, but this is finally the time where I feel that was a good decision. Like starting, being dedicated or consistent on that platform was a good decision. So I would say that yes, if you do have a passion, like for me, my passion is writing. I love writing, and so that's how I turned it into a personal finance blog. If you do have something that you're passionate about, yes, start a side hustle that is aligned to that. But do remember that there's no magic. You're not going to start making money in 6 months, or even in 2 months, or in 3 months. It will take a whole lot of effort, and it will take consistency. So for me, that's the hack, actually, I would say, when it comes to my side hustle. I remember I told myself I am going to publish an article every week for 1 year. And it was daunting. Every week would come and somebody would ask me, so where is this week's article? And I'm like, God, I don't have the motivation. But then I stopped looking at my side hustle as motivation, because that's the other thing. If you wait for motivation, motivation, I usually say, is perishable. If you wait for motivation, you'll never do it. So commit to being consistent. That if you say you're going to be showing up every day, or every week, or every month to this side hustle, show up for it every day, every week, or every month, however your side hustle is set up, and keep on keeping on. It will come through at the end of the day. I do hope that answers your question, because I don't want to like get into the nitty-gritties of blogging, because maybe not everyone in this webinar wants to start a blog. Yeah, so like maybe that was like a general view. Consistent is the main thing.
All right. So yes, you don't have to, not everybody has to start a blog, but look at your hobbies, what you enjoy doing. If you need to start a side hustle, and then look at anything that is you're not going to spend so much money. Already probably you're in debt, something that you're not going to borrow so that you can start. Yeah. So something that you don't have to spend so much money so that you can kick it off, and then try and make it work for you. If it's I see people making art chupas and all that, decorative chupas, and they sell them online. I see my son telling my brother, I'm coming to paint your house, and then you pay me 200 shillings. So he's not in debt, but yeah, he's building his wealth, as he says. Yeah. So something that you're passionate about and that will not cost you so much money for you to start, try and start it. And something else that I want us to touch on lightly, something that you've been writing on, Agatha, the last 2 weeks, was on black tax. So black tax can just be, I don't know, I think everybody has heard about it. Yeah, it is those things that you do for your family or your friends, especially for family, and they feel they're entitled to your money. I don't know how else I can put it in a better way, but they feel that they're entitled to your money. So some time back when I started working, and everybody in your family is looking up to you and all that. And I remember someone asked me for money, and I told them I don't have, and they asked me, so what do you do with your money? And I was like, sorry, it is my money. What do you mean? Like it hurt me, yeah. And I realized most of the time you actually get into debt so that you can save other people's asses because you feel you need to, yeah, because that is your family's, because you cannot let them down. Do we need to get into debt for that? No, whatsoever. So what I do is write down my list of priorities. I have a budget on a monthly basis, and then I have a miscellaneous amount. Yeah. So it's the miscellaneous amount is for those birthday parties that you have to contribute to, baby showers that you have to contribute to, wedding committees, burial committees, and all that you have to contribute to. If my allocated amount is 10,000 shillings, ikipita hapo, yeah, if there are anything else that comes up in that list that imeshapita your 10K, I mean, let's move on to next month. Yeah, it is not in my budget. That is what I do for myself. I don't know what you do. I don't know what your story. I know your story, but I don't want to say your story. But yeah, tell us.
Okay, so for me, black tax is something I'm very passionate about because I've been to hell and back when it comes to I've been to hell and back when it comes to black tax, because in my family setup, among my siblings, I'm the one who makes the most money. So and the thing is, I am the youngest, but I'm the one who makes the most money. So there's a lot of things at play. There's the thing of, because you're the youngest, we can bulldoze our way to asking you for money, and also because you make money and you do not have children, unapeleka pesa yako wapi? So kwa sababu it's because you don't have kids, kwa sababu hauna mahali pa kupeleka pesa yako, how about you boost our lives? You know, it's a lot. It's a difficult conversation, and it's something that a lot of people go through. And I would like to give an example of a lady I was having a conversation with recently, and this lady, she works as an engineer in one of the parastatals in Kenya. And this lady has a net, has a gross pay of around 130,000. But then because of all the deductions and especially the debt deductions, because she's in a lot of debt, after all the deductions, including her debt, the amount of money that hits her account per month is only 45,000. And this is somebody who is in her late 40s and who has kids, who has 3 kids and is married, and of course has all these responsibilities in life. So seeing this profile, what happens is that, unfortunately, she still has to contribute about 60,000 to both her parents and her in-laws, like a total of 60,000 per month. Yet I've told you that this person only gets 45,000 shillings in her bank account. So, and she manages to contribute this 60,000 by her side hustles, using her side hustle, and also debt. So she takes up a lot of debt to be able to contribute these 60,000 shillings towards her parents and also her in-laws. But the saddest thing about this story is her siblings do not contribute anything towards her parent. So the burden is only on her. She's the only person who is contributing towards her parents' well-being. And so I asked her, how did you get into this situation where you are the only one and every other person has a job? How did you get in this situation where you're the only person who is contributing towards your parents' upkeep? And she told me, and one of the things through the conversation we realized is that assumptions, people in her siblings and her relative have these assumptions that she makes a lot of money simply because she's an engineer at a parastatal. So like one thing that I do tell people when it comes to dealing with black tax is you need to talk about money. You need to create an environment in your family or in your extended family where you can have, you need to have to create an environment in your family where you can have candid and honest conversations about money, because not having conversations about money creates all these assumptions. Because for example, this lady, people assume that she makes millions per month. Like she told me that people literally assume that I make millions per month. And so when I contribute around 60,000 towards all this upkeep, people think that is my pocket change. Yet that is way more money than she gets in her bank account. And so this lady in her late 40s, she has found herself in a situation where she has no retirement plan at all, and her net worth is negative. And if you're aware, your net worth is your assets minus your liabilities. Her has is equals to negative in her late 40s. And so it's a very sad situation. So one of the things I told her is go sit down with your siblings. Go sit down with your siblings and tell them a candid conversation and tell them that if I continue with this trend of being the only one who has the burden of contributing towards my parent, I'm going to end up in deeper debt, because right now I'm already in debt, and I'm going to end up retiring into poverty. And so that's the danger of this situation of black tax, is if we do not handle it, we are never going, none of us in our families is ever going to build generational wealth, because that's the whole point. And so for me, I have a few, and now this is a good point to say that I'm actually writing an ebook. Maybe it will be published later into hard copy, but I'm actually writing an ebook on this thing, because it's one thing that I've realized that a lot of people suffer when it comes to an ebook. And so, and you know that black tax affects you in several ways. So it affects your ability to save, where inafika end month watu wako na mahitaji mingi, so lazima ucontribute how save pesa. It affects your ability to invest. How do you invest when 10 people in your family are expecting you to contribute towards their life? And also it screws up with your mental health, where if people have all these assumptions, like this lady, for example, people assume that she makes bank, that she makes 1 million shillings per month, yet she only gets 45,000 shillings. And so people, when even through a family gathering, people expect her to be the person who's pulling the most load. And the problem is you have to keep up. You have to keep up with this image of people thinking that you make so much money. So it messes up with your mental health, and the cycle. If your mental health is terrible, then ta-da, you're not able to work, you're not able to even come up with your side hustle. So there are different ways that you can tackle this situation. One, as I said, have honest conversations. Two, literally save at a bare minimum 10% of your savings, of your income. It doesn't matter ni nani anakuitisha pesa or nani akuitishi pesa. Your first responsibility, your primary responsibility, even way before other people. Like, for example, if you have kids, your primary responsibility is you and your children or your spouse. Those are your primary responsibilities. So before you send money to your uncle, before you even send money to your mom, you need to first make sure that the people who are your nuclear family, or who are your primary responsibility, are sorted, and then you onboard other people. So that is one way of dealing with black tax, removing yourself from the dependency cycle by starting to invest. Another way, as I said, is determining who is your primary, secondary, and tertiary responsibility. If your uncle, who has his own household, keeps on calling you for contributions, ask yourself, how do you send money to your uncle before you pay your child's school fees? You have to have your priorities right. Budget for it. If put, like Nyarera said, she budgets for 10,000 shillings to contribute towards black tax. Do the same. Ask yourself, how much money can I comfortably, how much money can I comfortably contribute towards people's needs? Can I comfortably contribute towards people's needs? And hiyo pesa ikiisha ni hivyo. I tell people that I don't work for an ambulance company, and I don't work for fire brigade. So ukiwa na shida za pesa, please try your level best to solve your own problems before you call me, because I am not your solution. You are your own solution. And then one more hack I would say is set a deadline for how long you're going to be helping these people. Because, for example, if you are paying school fees for a cousin or a younger sibling, okay, if you remember that there is also the topic of people who are below the age of 18 that you really have to support. For example, cousins or younger siblings, those ones you literally have to include it in your budget. But if it's somebody that, for example, a relative you're helping to set up a small business, for example, set a deadline for how long you're going to be giving them this support, so that they do not think that you're here to support them in perpetuity, or you're here to support them for the next 10 years. Tell them, I'm going to support you through this process for the next 1 year. So that they know in their heads that after 2 years, it's a done deal. After 2 years or after 1 year, it is upon you and me. I'll not be able to continue supporting you, because if I continue supporting you, then it means I'll also be jeopardizing my ability to retire. And so of course, the biggest solution to this thing is save for your own retirement. The thing is, the one thing is that due to poverty and lack of financial literacy, our parents think that we as their kids are a retirement plan. That's the problem. A lot of parents see their children as a retirement plan.
They actually tell you that when you're going to school, yeah?
Yes.
Go soma, ujue ni sisi tunakutegemea. I mean,
yes. How many times have you seen in the news? It's a very sad thing I see in the news every time, where, let's say, God forbid, somebody gets killed, by a police bullet or through a theft or something. And when the parents are being interviewed, the parents literally say, wametuulia ule mtu alikuwa atutoe kwa shida. And you're like, what do you mean? What do you mean? So people think that their kids are their retirement plan. So no matter how many stones may be thrown at me, I am here to tell you that your children are not a retirement plan. Your children are not a retirement plan. You need a retirement plan. So before you get bombarded with requests of weddings, do not contribute to people's wedding, by the way, if you do not have a retirement plan. If you do not have a retirement account, you should not be contributing to people's birthdays, baby showers, baby showers, weddings. Hawatakufa, but wewe utakufa. Because the truth is, 95% of the people in this world outlive their savings in retirement. Imagine, 95% of the people outlive their money in retirement. Umeweka tu pesa tudogo, umeretire, 2 years later, you slide back into poverty after 40 years of working. It's not right. So from day one, from your first paycheck, or even if you've not already started, start saving for your retirement. It's the only way to stop. Let children be children. Let kids grow up in a healthy environment where they are also taught about personal finance, how to manage their money. Do not tell your children that wewe ndio utatusaidia. Of course, it's a bigger conversation, but start saving for your own retirement and have conversations in your extended families about this situation. Yep.
Yeah, I agree. I think we have so many stories that go around. The last few days as well, I've seen on Facebook people complaining about the same thing. So you've helped your relatives, kids all through. Now COVID happened, you don't have a job, but people are still looking at you and people are talking to you badly because you have said maybe a kid that you are staying with now goes back to their parents' house because even you cannot be able to sustain yourself. Yeah. So it's a very touchy story, but one thing that I usually say is, for most of us who are givers, always know your limits, because the takers never know the limit. Yeah. And when your shit hits the fan, they never come to you and ask you, are you eating? Is anything happening? What is up with your kids? Can we help you? They never say that. The moment you stop contributing, you become the bad person in the family. Yeah. The moment you stop helping them, aliringa. But because you are you know yourself, you know what your financial plan is, make a budget. If anything comes that exceeds your budget, move it to the next. Yeah. Don't kill yourself trying to light someone else's fire. Really. Even if you lie flat, people will still complain that you're not flat enough. So know your limits. And then know that whatever, like what Agatha has said, make a plan for your life, make a plan for your retirement, build yourself up. Yeah, you do not want to be where our parents are, unfortunately, let me say that, but where our parents are, when they retire, they start looking at you so that you can start funding their kaploti walikuwa wamenunua, wamejenga hadi mahali, wamepata pension yao. wamejenga hadi roof. Now they cannot do maybe the roofing, or they cannot do the finishing, and they get stressed. And you're here, you have your family, you have your young family, your kids are going to school. They start getting sick as well. So you're balancing between, do we finish their house or do we take them to hospital? Yeah. So make sure that you have a very good plan about your financial life and what you want in the future. That is what I can say. I don't know whether there is any more questions that are coming your way. I think Dee had asked for us to share your blog, and I've shared that. For anybody who had not signed up, who has just joined in, kindly send in your email addresses so that we can be able to reach out to you. Also be able to send that debt planner from Agatha's side, and take any more questions that we may have. However, we are willing to walk the journey with you. Myself, Agatha, as Vasili and as Wealth Tribe, we are willing to walk the journey with you to your financial freedom. Feel free to reach us anytime that you want. I think let me share our contacts again. Agatha, you can share your email.
Oh yeah.
And then that's our telephone number. You can reach us anytime that you want. We can walk the journey with you from where you are to your financial freedom. Yes. Asanteni sana for joining us. I don't know, any last words, Agatha?
No, so debt freedom is possible. I think the time that day I wrote that article about debt free, a lot of people were like, what is that? Like, and the reason being is, as soon as we hit adulthood, I've had this conversation so many times. As soon as we hit adulthood, the first thing we're told is join a SACCO, ndio upate loan. That is our introduction to personal finance as an adult. So join a SACCO ndio upate loan. And so people think that adulthood equals living in debt. And so when I tell people that I live debt free, or debt freedom is an attainable thing, people are like, that's a thing, that's something to aspire to. So yeah, I will tell you, yes, it's something to aspire to. And also to remember that we are not saying that debt is a bad thing. Debt is a tool that you can use to build wealth. You can take a loan to invest in your education, to invest in your business and stuff like that. But here we are talking about irresponsible debt, where you take a debt to improve your lifestyle, which you have no plan on paying. So last words is debt freedom is possible. And asanteni sana for this session, and do reach out, and tutaonana on the other side of the Wealth Tribe.
Sure thing. Asante sana, Agatha.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us. I think we have exceeded with a few minutes, but I think it has been a very helpful conversation for many of us. We shall share the presentation as well on emails. Yes. Thank you so much.
Bye, guys.